Welcome back to the Warp Show. On this episode, we talk to the second of the 10 plagues. And you know what, guys? Let's not do that again. I don't want to see frogs coming through a portal ever again, okay? Let's talk to someone who actually just hops on 2 legs instead of 4. Pastor Jonathan. Welcome. Oh, nope, scary.
I just did that because you said that I did that, but hi, I'm so happy to be on the Warp Show. Is that how you do it?
That's it. It's
okay.
Perfect.
That's my first time trying that. That's good.
Yeah, are you ready to go into the past?
Let's do it.
Perfect.
Okay, never done a portal.
It's just right there.
Okay.
Yeah, you just step
right.
Right there. Just step right there.
Just like one hand. I'm just kind of like a little
right
nervous.
forward. 5 seconds in the portal could be 5 hours or 5 days or 5 weeks or 5 years. So let's count down from 5 and bring Pastor Jonathan back. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh! I got my leg in the. I got my leg in the portal.
Get it right out.
Leg in the portal.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh! I'm back.
Great.
I'm good.
You doing good?
I'm great. That was a lot.
Yeah.
How do I explain all that I have just seen? Okay, I got it. Okay, have you ever been scared, overwhelmed, terrified,
Yes.
petrified?
Yes.
Me too. Like when I was a kid, I was scared all the time. I was scared of everything, okay? Even, don't laugh, even clowns.
Oh yeah, like their big hair and the squeaky nose and those feet that just go on forever. The big
Please!
shoes.
I'm so sorry. It's just that I'm still a little bit scared of clowns.
Sorry.
It's okay. Anyway, you know what would really help is if my mom or my brother's sister or a friend or somebody who really cared about me was nearby. Just when that was happening, when I was with people I loved, all the fear would melt away. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Then you'll understand what I just witnessed in this portal. Now, I want you to imagine Moses, but not baby Moses, adult Moses. And he is scared.
Why?
Because there was this bush in the middle of the wilderness, and it was on fire, and it wasn't burning up.
Weird.
Oh yeah, and it gets weirder because the bush was actually talking to Moses.
What?
Well, okay, it wasn't actually the bush. It was God's voice coming out of the bush.
Oh.
And it told Moses, the voice of God told Moses to take off his sandals because he was standing on holy ground. So Moses did, took off his sandals, he bowed really, really low to the ground, and he was trembling, okay? Because he was so scared of the presence of God. It was so powerful that it made him tremble.
Like when you're standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon?
Yeah, or like if you've ever swam next to a whale.
I've never done that.
Me either. But the point is, it was powerful, and God is powerful. But the thing we have to remember is he's also good. And he had a good plan, a plan that Moses was part of, and he had nothing to be afraid of. So here's what God said. Exodus 3:10, now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people Israel out of Egypt. But Moses protested to God, who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt? This is where God gives him a super important promise in Exodus 3:12. God answered, I will be with you. Even though it was a big job, God promised Moses that he would be with him every single step of the way. He even promised that Moses and the Israelites would worship on the very same mountain that Moses was standing on. Now, let me ask you a question. If God made you a promise, would you believe it?
Oh yeah.
Well, if so, clap your hands above your head. Great. I'm glad that you believe it, and you believe it, but Moses didn't believe it at all. At all. I mean, he argued with God 5 times.
5 times?
5 times. That's a lot of arguing with the creator of the universe. But you know what? Moses came to his senses. He finally decided to go along with God's plan. So let's see if God keeps his promise. Moses and Aaron, they go to Pharaoh, who's the leader of the Egyptians, and they ask Pharaoh, please let the Israelites go so we can worship God together. Pharaoh tells them flat out, no way.
Flat out?
No way. And he even makes the Israelites do more work.
What a bully.
Yeah. Moses is mad, but not at Pharaoh. He's mad at God. And he says, God, why would you let this happen to the Israelites? Here's what God says. Exodus 6:1. When he feels the force of my strong hand, he will let the people go. Okay, so let me ask you something. What do you think the force of God's strong hand feels like? I mean, imagine Moses was already trembling in God's presence, and that was when God wasn't even angry.
Imagine trying to go against God.
That would be terrifying. And that's exactly what Pharaoh was about to do, and it's not gonna be pretty, okay? God is going to send 10 different plagues to Egypt.
Oh, I know about plagues.
Number 1, God turned all the water in Egypt into blood. Is that scary? Yes. Is it gross? Very much so. But we're just getting started. Plague number 2, frogs everywhere.
What about plagues 3 and 4?
Gnats and flies, tons of them. You ever had a fly inside your ear? Like you can't get it out? What about in your nose hole?
No.
What about in your eyeball? How about all 3 at once? Nasty.
Ew.
Okay, we're gonna keep going. Plague number 5, all the cows, donkeys, horses, they all fell down dead.
The livestock?
They're all gone. Number 6 was boils. Boils all over the skin. I mean, sometimes all it takes is one badly placed pimple to kill the mood, but I mean...
I thought you wouldn't notice.
All right, plague 7, hail, giant ice rocks falling from the sky, hitting you on the head.
Bonk.
Exactly. Plague 8, locusts came out of the sky, filled the air, and ate all the crops.
That sounds awful.
It was awful, and there's still 2 left.
No.
Buckle up. Plague 9 was a plague of darkness. Imagine nobody sees the sun in Egypt for 3 whole days. Now, raise your hand if you're a little scared of the dark. I'm raising mine. It's okay. Yeah, if I couldn't see the sun for 3 days, I would go crazy. But the last plague is by far the worst. Do you remember when Moses was just a baby?
Oh yeah, I met him.
Well, the Egyptians had this terrible order to kill all of the firstborn sons of Israel, and Moses barely escaped. Well, God, to show his strong hand of power to Pharaoh, was going to reverse this terrible action with a night called Passover. His presence would pass over every house in Egypt, and he would give the Israelites a way to protect themselves in his presence. So for every home that had the blood of a lamb over the door, his presence would pass over that door and the people inside would be safe. But for every house that did not have the blood of a lamb over the door, those firstborn children wouldn't last the night. Pretty sad. And after this plague, Pharaoh had to admit that God's power was too great. He let the Israelites go free. But as soon as Moses and the Israelites were approaching the Red Sea out of Egypt, Pharaoh changed his mind and he chased after them. Now, let's pause here. God made Moses a promise at the beginning of the story. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah.
God promised Moses that he would always be with him. And so far, has he kept the promise?
Yes.
Okay, let's think about it. So he stayed with Moses no matter what. He helped free the Israelites. He showed Pharaoh his power. And now that Moses and the Israelites were facing Pharaoh and had the Red Sea on the other side, do you think that Moses should be afraid?
No.
Well, let's see what happens. Exodus 14:21 through 22. Then Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the Lord opened up a path through the water with a strong east wind. The wind blew all that night, turning the seabed into dry land. So the people of Israel walked through the middle of the sea on dry ground, with walls of water on each side. God split the sea just for Moses and the Israelites. It was an amazing ending to an amazing story.
But what happened to Pharaoh and the Egyptians?
I'm glad you asked. Exodus 14:28. Then the waters returned, and covered all the chariots and charioteers, the entire army of Pharaoh. Of all the Egyptians who had chased the Israelites into the sea, not a single one survived. Whoa, with one move, God protected his children and destroyed their enemies. That's amazing. And I think it teaches us two things about God. Number one, it's really scary to be on the other side of God, like Pharaoh was, fighting against him at every turn. But number two, when we're on God's side, we can trust that he will never, ever leave us. Romans 8:31 says this, "What shall we say about such wonderful things as these? If God is for us, who can ever be against us?" That's a really good question, especially when we consider our key verse, Joshua 1:9. "This is my command, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." So all of us face things that are scary, and a lot of times we don't know how things are gonna end, but we do know that God is timeless. And that means he knows the beginning from the end. And he's given us Jesus. Jesus' name is Emmanuel, and that means God with us. So he died to pay for the sins we've done and all the sins we will do. He's always with us. And when he died, he became just like those lambs from the story whose blood over the door protected all the Israelites in God's presence. See, because of what Jesus has done for us, we can feel safe in God's presence forever. We don't have to be afraid. And so what we think is our biggest trouble could actually turn into our best story if we hold on to God's promises just like Moses did. So talk to God whenever you're afraid. Refuse to forget that he is with you, and remember to ask for his help because he promises that he will never, ever leave you.
Man, it is so good to trust in a God to be there for us all the time. Not only that, he wants to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, we are wrapping up the show, but would you do the big idea with me?
Yes, I would.
Awesome. All right, boys and girls, stand to your feet, stand to your feet, get up, get up. We're gonna do the big idea in 3, 2, 1. Trust God all the time. All right, y'all, have a good one. See you next time. Bye.